She stole my husband. Tiffany. But that was just the beginning, inviting my ex's worst nightmare to my mom's birthday. Well, that set off the bombshell. I knew it. Tiffany stole my husband? Ugh. But it was the unvarnished truth. And the part about inviting my boyfriend, Josh, and his daughter Emma, to my mother's birthday party, knowing it would grate on my ex-husband Kevin? Also true. I just hadn't anticipated the nuclear fallout. Josh was a revelation. 2 years ago, my life was a monotonous beige. Kevin and I were going through the motions, a predictable rhythm of dinners, TV, and strained conversations about mortgage rates. Then came the divorce, Tiffany's victory, and a gaping hole in my life. Until Emma. I'd answered a babysitting ad. Josh, a widower, was drowning in grief and single parenthood. He was kind, but guarded, his eyes holding a sadness that mirrored my own. Emma, 5, was a ray of sunshine desperately trying to pierce the clouds hanging over their lives. I lived 2 streets over, so it was practical. I needed the money. But spending time with them felt like breathing again. Emma latched onto me immediately, calling me Ash, and demanding I braid her hair just so. Josh and I started talking. About Emma, about grief, about the absurdities of daily life. Slowly, hesitantly, a spark ignited. Now, we were a unit. We lived together. Emma called me her second mom, a title I wore with fierce pride. When Mom, Susan, invited us to her 60th birthday, I didn't hesitate. Mom adored Emma, loved Josh's quiet strength. Bring them Ashley. Their family. That was my first mistake. Or was it? Maybe I did want to rub it in Kevin's face, just a little. Tiffany, my older sister by 5 years, had always been a force of nature, ambitious, beautiful, and fiercely competitive. She got the academic scholarships, the coveted internships, the stable marriage, to my husband no less. But beneath the polished surface, I always sensed a fragility. A desperate need for validation. Seeing Josh and Emma with Mom, witnessing the ease with which they were embraced, seemed to trigger something primal in her. The kitchen door slammed shut, the sound echoing through the house. "You are so selfish," Tiffany hissed, her face inches from mine. Her perfect makeup was starting to smear with anger. "What?" I blinked, genuinely confused. "You know bringing Josh here will make Kevin uncomfortable." Of course I knew. I knew Kevin's favorite coffee, his childhood insecurities, the way his left eye twitched when he was stressed. I'd spent 5 years married to him. 5 years I thought were good, solid. Until Tiffany, with her insidious whispers, convinced him I was lacking. That he deserved more excitement, more passion, more Tiffany. He'd blindsided me with the divorce, and weeks later, he and Tiffany were practically inseparable. The family had embraced it, conveniently forgetting whose heart had been shattered in the process. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the casual way everyone accepted it, like I was disposable. I crossed my arms, trying to remain calm. "I know Kevin better than you do, Tiffany. I know his traumas, his insecurities, his problems. I was married to him, remember?" Tiffany stiffened, her perfectly sculpted lips pressed into a thin line. "That's exactly why you should be more understanding. He needs to heal." I let out a humorless laugh. "Heal? Right. While you parade your prize around?" "Yes, his father cheated on his mother with the nanny and destroyed their family. He grew up with that trauma. And now you're bringing your boyfriend here, knowing that your story is similar?" Tiffany's eyes flickered, a momentary flash of vulnerability crossing her face. "What are you talking about? Josh lost his wife? There was no cheating. There was no betrayal. But the trauma is still there, and you're forcing him to relive it by bringing Josh." Rage, cold and sharp, surged through me. "Look, Josh is part of my life. He's part of this family. And if Kevin has a problem with that, that's his problem." I reached for the door handle. "You know what? You're right. He needs to heal. Maybe he should start by apologizing to me for wrecking our marriage. He needs to seek therapy." I wrenched the door open and marched back to Josh and Emma, who were chatting with Mom, Susan, near the rose bushes. Josh smiled when he saw me, a warm, reassuring smile that always managed to calm my frayed nerves. Emma, oblivious to the drama, was meticulously examining a pink rose. The party initially felt like a tentative truce. Mom hugged Josh, kissed Emma's cheek, and started explaining the different varieties of roses. But the tension was palpable. I could feel Tiffany and Kevin's eyes on us, dissecting every interaction. They sat at the far end of the patio table, whispering to each other, their faces tight with disapproval. Josh squeezed my hand under the table. "Ignore them, Ash. They're just being themselves. I wanted to, I truly did. But after dinner, after the awkward rendition of Happy Birthday and the forced smiles, the dam broke. "This is disgusting," Kevin blurted out, his face flushed with wine and simmering resentment. He pointed a trembling finger at Josh. "How can you sleep at night knowing you're betraying your wife's memory?" Silence descended like a suffocating blanket. Forks clattered against plates. Mom's forced smile faltered. Emma, sensing the shift in atmosphere, squeezed Josh's hand tighter. Josh rose slowly to his feet, his expression hardening. Emma clung to his arm, her big, hazel eyes filled with confusion and burgeoning fear. "Don't talk like that in front of my daughter." His voice was low, controlled, but a dangerous edge vibrated beneath the surface. I stood up beside him, my heart pounding. "What the hell is wrong with you, Kevin? Josh hasn't done anything to you. I've done nothing to you." Tiffany jumped to her feet, her eyes blazing. "And yet you brought them here, knowing how Kevin feels." Rage exploded in my chest. "Them? What are you even saying? Josh and Emma are my family. Or have you conveniently forgotten that you destroyed my marriage?" Tiffany's face paled. Kevin visibly recoiled. Mom tried to defuse the situation with a weak, Now, everyone calm down." But it was too late. The genie was out of the bottle. Josh looked at me, his gaze intense. "Take Emma to the car. Let me handle this." His tone was too calm, too even. It terrified me more than any shouting match. I nodded, grabbed Emma's hand, and practically dragged her towards the front door. The real battle was about to begin, and I didn't want her to witness it. The air outside was bitingly cold, or maybe it just felt that way because my skin was burning with shame and anger. I took Emma's hand and walked briskly towards the car, trying to ignore the trembling in my fingers. Tiffany and Kevin, fueled by years of resentment and fueled by alcohol, were a volatile combination. I had been naive enough to think they could behave, even for a few hours. Emma climbed into the back seat, her lower lip trembling. "Why was Uncle Kevin saying those things?" she asked, her small voice barely a whisper. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. I didn't want her to feel even a flicker of guilt. She had absolutely nothing to do with this. She was just a child, caught in the crossfire of petty, vindictive adults. "Don't listen to them, sweetheart," I said, forcing a smile. "Sometimes people say mean things when they're upset, but that doesn't mean they're right." She didn't look convinced, but she nodded and lowered her gaze to her wrist, where she wore a beaded bracelet we had made together. It was her comfort object, a tangible reminder of our connection. In the distance, the front door slammed shut, followed by a cacophony of shouting. Tiffany and Kevin had completely lost control, and Josh was still inside, caught in the middle. I bit my lip. Josh wasn't the type to initiate a fight, but he wasn't one to back down either. Kevin, on the other hand, had always been a coward disguised as a man of principles. He'd used Tiffany as his excuse, his justification for destroying our marriage. The minutes stretched into an eternity. Finally, I saw Josh emerge from the house. His expression was unreadable, but his posture spoke volumes. Tense shoulders, firm steps, a cold fury that didn't manifest on his face but lingered in the air like a static charge. He opened the car door and got in without a word. His knuckles were white as he gripped the steering wheel. "Everything okay?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "Let's go," was all he said. I started the car and pulled away from the curb, leaving the wreckage of my mother's birthday party behind. The silence in the car was heavy, thick with unspoken words and simmering resentment. Emma fell asleep almost immediately, her head lolling against the window. When I glanced at Josh, I saw him staring blankly at the road ahead, his jaw clenched tight. "What happened?" I finally asked, breaking the oppressive silence. He sighed, but didn't look at me. "Your sister Tiffany really outdid herself this time. It wasn't just about me, it was about you." My chest tightened. I knew Tiffany despised me, but hearing those words from Josh made the reality of her hatred all the more painful. "What did she say?" Josh ran a hand down his face, then rested his elbow on the window, staring out at the passing streetlights. "She said it's unfair that you always land on your feet. That no matter what happens, you always find a way to move forward, while she has to fight for everything." I let out a bitter laugh. "Of course. The eternal victim. She went after Emma." The anger in Josh's voice sent a chill down my spine. "What?" Josh's jaw tightened further. "She said you're raising another woman's daughter as if she were your own. That no matter how much you love her, you'll never be her mother." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The air seemed to have been sucked out of the car. I knew Tiffany could be cruel, but I never imagined she'd sink so low. Emma wasn't just another woman's daughter. She was my daughter too. Not by blood, but by love, by choice. The bond we shared was deeper and more meaningful than any biological connection. I remained silent, struggling to control the burning rage that threatened to consume me. There was no reasoning with someone who was so consumed by bitterness and envy. My sister Tiffany was jealous of me. She did not like me. She resented the relationship I had with my mom, Susan. It was just something I knew growing up. But what Josh said next sent a fresh wave of shock through me. Do you know why Kevin was really so uncomfortable? I looked at him intently, my mind racing. Because he knows he made a mistake? Because he's finally realized what he threw away? Josh shook his head slowly. Because he's afraid of me. Because when he saw you with me, he saw everything he lost. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. No, Kevin was never the type to regret anything. He took what he wanted and moved on. He's incapable of feeling true remorse. Maybe not usually. But he does now. Josh paused. He told me that's why he's been drinking heavily the last couple of years. He said he finally understands what he had with you. He's not happy with Tiffany, Ashley. I think he's realizing what a mistake he made, and that's fueling her rage too. Suddenly, the car felt too small, too claustrophobic. Well, that's too bad, I said, my voice tight. Because he'll never have the chance to get it back. Josh barely smiled, but there was a knowing glint in his eyes. He sensed that this battle was far from over, that Tiffany and Kevin wouldn't simply retreat into the shadows. He was right. The ping of my phone shattered the silence. It was a text message from an unknown number. He's not who you think he is. Dig a little deeper, Ashley. You'll be surprised what you find. My blood ran cold. Who would send something like that? And what did they mean? I showed the message to Josh. He frowned. Ignore it. It's probably just Tiffany trying to stir up trouble. But the seed of doubt had been planted. The party was over. The calm was broken. The war had begun, and I did not like it. The next blow came subtly, insidiously. It wasn't the grand explosion I expected, but a slow burn that threatened to consume my professional life. My boss, Mr. Thompson, called me into his office. His tone was polite, but distant, a subtle shift from his usual friendly demeanor. I knew Mr. Thompson. He was a good guy, and I knew he wouldn't just fire someone because of rumors. This was more calculated than that. When I arrived, he closed the door and slid his phone across the table. On the screen were screenshots of social media posts, anonymous messages circulating within the company, painting me as a toxic, manipulative individual. They claimed I was a homewrecker, that I had ruined marriages, and that my presence at the company was a problem. There was no direct accusation, no explicit mention of Tiffany or Kevin, but the implication was clear. Someone was systematically trying to discredit me, to poison my professional reputation. I don't know what's going on in your personal life, Ashley, but this isn't the image we want to project as a company, Mr. Thompson said, his hands clasped together on his desk. His eyes were sympathetic, but his words were firm. We've had some complaints from clients, Ashley. They're concerned about the negativity surrounding your name. The initial wave of anger was quickly replaced by a cold, hard resolve. This wasn't just a petty family squabble anymore. It was a calculated attack on my livelihood. Tiffany wasn't just trying to humiliate me. She was trying to destroy me. Are you implying that I should resign? I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil raging inside. His gaze shifted away, unable to meet my eyes. It would make things easier? He didn't have the courage to say it outright, but the pressure was palpable. He wanted me gone. It wasn't that he wanted me gone, it was that he was being pressured from above. I stood up without a word. If Tiffany wanted a war, she would get one. I drove home on autopilot, my mind racing. The blood pounded in my ears, drowning out the traffic noise. The world seemed to have tilted on its axis, the familiar landscape suddenly alien and hostile. When I walked into the house, Josh was in the living room with Emma, helping her with a drawing. The scene was so peaceful, so domestic, so achingly normal, it felt surreal. It was the life Tiffany craved, the life she had tried to sabotage. I stood in the doorway, watching them, feeling the fury tearing through me. This was no longer just about jealousy or wounded pride. This was about protecting the life I had built, the family I had created. My sister Tiffany had crossed a line, and I was not going to let her get away with it. The weight of the day bore down on me. I was no longer me, I was someone different, and that meant people had no idea what to expect from me. I looked at my phone, and I knew it was the right time to bring back someone from the past, my childhood friend Richard. Richard was always a little strange, but the guy knew how to investigate things. He had always been obsessed with mysteries, so he would be the right guy to investigate my sister Tiffany. I would need to gather information on Tiffany, to expose her lies. I thought about the dig deeper text. I needed proof that I wasn't crazy, that Tiffany was behind all this. I messaged Richard, "Hey, haven't talked to you in a while, how is it going? Can we meet?" "Sure, I've been pretty busy investigating a couple of strange occurrences, but I can make some time. Are you free this week?" Richard replied. "Perfect. How about tomorrow? Do you still know the cafe we used to hang out a lot back in high school?" "Yeah, of course, 3 p.m. Sound good?" "Great. See you there." I had a sense Richard was the right person to help me. I had not seen him in a while, but I knew that if there was someone I could trust to get to the bottom of this situation, it was Richard. He was a great ally to have. He always had a knack for uncovering things nobody else could see. He was also fiercely loyal. The next day I met Richard at the cafe we always went to in high school. "Ashley, so good to see you," Richard exclaimed as he went in for a hug. "So, what's all this about? You seem pretty preoccupied. I have a feeling you are here for more than just a casual hangout." "Yeah, I need your help. I know this might sound crazy, but I need you to investigate my sister," I answered. Richard looked confused. "Investigate your sister? What happened?" "She is trying to make my life miserable. I will give you all the details, but I think she is sabotaging my life, and I need to know what she is up to," I said. "Okay, I am in. I have always liked to investigate, and since it involves a friend, I will do whatever I can." "Tell me everything," Richard replied. I told Richard the whole story, the affair with Kevin, the birthday party, the message my boss received, everything. "Wow, Ashley, this is crazy. It sounds like your sister is really trying to make your life difficult. I can help you. I will start investigating, and I will update you on any findings," Richard said with a serious tone. "Thank you, Richard. I knew I could count on you. I have a feeling this is just the beginning, and I need to be prepared for whatever she has planned," I replied. We talked for a while about the plan, how Richard would gather information, and what steps we should take based on what he found. After our meeting, I felt a little more relieved. Having Richard on my side gave me a sense of security. He was the perfect ally to have in a situation like this. Days went by, and Richard started to unravel some threads. He discovered that Tiffany had been in contact with several people in the company and that she had been spreading rumors about me. Richard had recorded those calls and had collected many screenshots of her and others talking poorly of me. He even found out who was pressuring Mr. Thompson, a VP who was a close friend of Kevin's. Also, he uncovered that Tiffany and Kevin had been going through a lot of therapy, that Kevin was actually suffering depression, and that she might have been trying to get some of the money from the company that Josh owned. One afternoon, Richard called me with an urgent tone in his voice. "Ashley, I have found something you need to know right away. Can we meet?" "Of course, where and when?" I answered. "I am close to your house. Can I go there?" Richard asked. "Yeah, sure." A few minutes later, Richard arrived at my house. Josh and Emma were out at the park, so I could speak freely with him. "Ashley, I have some pretty shocking news," Richard said, looking serious. "I have discovered that Tiffany, alongside Kevin, have been plotting to make you look bad to get some money from Josh, by making him seem like a bad person for the public image of the company. Also, I found out that Tiffany has been talking to a lawyer about getting custody of Emma, which makes no sense at all." I was speechless. "That is insane, Richard. I can't believe she would go that far." "There is more. I have gathered evidence that shows Tiffany has been using company resources at Kevin's job to harass you online. She is using his influence and the company's equipment to spread misinformation and slander you. I have screenshots of the emails, records of the calls, everything. This is beyond anything I imagined. This is not just about jealousy or spite anymore. She is actively trying to destroy my life," I said, feeling a mix of rage and fear. "That is correct. And you need to be careful. Tiffany is desperate and she will do whatever it takes to achieve her goals," Richard warned. I thanked Richard for his help, and he left, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I knew I had to do something, and I knew that exposing Tiffany was the only way to protect myself and my family. I decided to call my mom. "Mom, can we please meet?" I asked. "Sure, Ashley. Is everything okay?" My mother replied with concern. "No, everything is not okay. We need to talk. It is about Tiffany," I said. "All right, can you come over today?" my mother asked. "I will be there in an hour," I replied. I arrived at my parents' house and found my mother waiting for me. She looked very worried. "What is going on, Ashley? You sounded very serious on the phone," my mother said, guiding me to the living room. I sat down and took a deep breath. "Mom, Tiffany is trying to sabotage my life. She is the one who sent those messages to Mr. Thompson trying to get me fired, and is behind the online harassment too. But that is not all. Now she is talking with a lawyer about getting custody of Emma, I said, trying to stay calm. My mother's eyes widened in shock. Ashley, that is terrible, but how do you know all of this? I hired a private investigator to look into it. He has gathered evidence, screenshots, recordings, everything. Tiffany is completely out of control, I explained. I can't believe she would do something like that. She has always been competitive, but this is beyond anything I imagined, my mother said, shaking her head. Mom, you need to talk to her. You need to make her understand that she is hurting everyone, including herself. I don't want this to escalate any further, but I am not going to stand by and let her destroy my life, I replied, my voice firm. My mother looked at me with a mix of sadness and determination. I will talk to her, Ashley. I promise you, I will do everything I can to make her see reason. This has gone on long enough. I thanked my mother and left her house, feeling a little more relieved. I knew my mother would do whatever she could, but I also knew that Tiffany was capable of anything. I had to stay vigilant and protect myself and my family from whatever she had planned next. That night, I decided to have a serious conversation with Josh. I had to tell him about everything I had discovered, including Tiffany's potential plans to target his company. I waited until Emma was asleep and Josh and I were alone in the living room. Josh, we need to talk, I said, my voice serious. Josh looked at me with concern. What is it, Ashley? You seem tense. I took a deep breath and started to explain everything. I told him about Tiffany's campaign to ruin my reputation, about her contact with the company, and about everything Richard had discovered. Josh listened in silence, his expression growing darker with each word. When I finished, he was visibly angry. I can't believe she would go so far. She is out of control, Josh said, his jaw clenched. That's not all, Josh. Richard also discovered that Tiffany has been talking to a lawyer about getting custody of Emma, I added, barely above a whisper. Josh's eyes flashed with fury. That's ridiculous. She has no right. Emma is my daughter, and she is very happy to have you as her second mom. I know, but we need to be prepared. Tiffany is desperate, and she will do whatever it takes, I said, reaching for his hand. Don't worry, Ashley, I will protect you and Emma. We will face this together, Josh replied, squeezing my hand tightly. We spent the rest of the night discussing a plan. Josh decided to involve the company's legal team to investigate Tiffany's actions and take appropriate measures. We also agreed to be extra vigilant and cautious with Emma, making sure she was always safe and protected. As I lay in bed that night, I knew that the battle with Tiffany was far from over. But I also knew that I was not alone. I had Josh by my side, and together we would face whatever challenges came our way. We had to stick together. The next morning, my mother called me, sounding exhausted. Ashley, I talked to Tiffany, she said, her voice tired. How did it go, Mom? I asked, bracing myself for the worst. It was terrible, Ashley. She refused to listen. She is convinced that she is in the right and that you are the one who has ruined her life. She accused me of favoring you and siding against her. It was impossible to get through to her, my mother explained, sighing deeply. I felt a surge of frustration. I knew it. I knew she wouldn't listen. I am sorry, Ashley. I tried, but I don't know what else to do. She is so consumed by jealousy and anger that she is blind to reason, my mother added. It is okay, Mom. Thank you for trying. I will handle it from here, I replied, my voice determined. I knew that if Tiffany was not willing to listen to reason, I had to take matters into my own hands. It was time to confront her directly and expose her lies for everyone to see. That afternoon, I called Tiffany and asked her to meet me. What do you want, Ashley? She asked, her voice cold. We need to talk, Tiffany. Can we meet somewhere? I replied, trying to keep my voice calm. I don't think there is anything to talk about. This conversation should have happened years ago, Tiffany said. Yes, there is. We have a lot to talk about. If you don't meet me, I will be forced to take other measures, I threatened. Tiffany hesitated for a moment, then sighed. Fine, let's meet at that park where we used to play as kids, you know which one? All right, I will be there. The park brought back a lot of childhood memories, a lot of which were good, back when Tiffany was my ally. When I got to the park, I found Tiffany waiting for me. She looked tense and guarded. What do you want, Ashley? She asked again, her eyes narrowed. I know everything, Tiffany. I know you are trying to sabotage my life. I know you sent those messages to my boss. I know you are behind the online harassment, and I know you are talking with a lawyer about getting custody of Emma, I said, my voice steady but firm. Tiffany's face paled, but she remained defiant. I don't know what you are talking about. You are making things up. Don't lie to me, Tiffany. I have evidence, I have screenshots, recordings, everything. I know the truth, and I am not going to let you get away with it, I replied, taking a step closer. Tiffany scoffed. And what are you going to do, Ashley? What can you do? Everyone always takes your side, but this time is different. This time, you have gone too far. I am going to expose you, Tiffany. I am going to show everyone the truth about who you really are. I am going to make sure that you can't hurt me or anyone else ever again, I said, my voice filled with determination. Do you really think people will believe you? You are just jealous. You have always been jealous of me. You can't stand the fact that I am better than you. Tiffany said, her voice rising. I am not jealous of you, Tiffany. I am disgusted by you. You are a manipulative, vindictive person who is willing to hurt anyone to get what you want. But I am not going to let you win this time, I replied, my eyes blazing with anger. We stood there facing each other, the tension between us palpable. I knew that this was the moment of truth. I had to stand strong and show Tiffany that I was not going to back down. I am giving you one last chance, Tiffany. Admit what you have done, apologize, and stop all of this madness. If you don't, I will expose everything, and you will have to face the consequences, I said, my voice stern. Tiffany looked at me for a long moment, her expression a mix of defiance and uncertainty. Then, she let out a bitter laugh. Never. I will never apologize to you, Ashley. You are the one who should be apologizing to me. You have ruined everything. I sighed, feeling a sense of finality. Very well, Tiffany. You have made your choice. I turned and walked away, leaving Tiffany standing alone in the park. I knew that the battle was far from over, but I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. It was time to expose the truth and protect myself and my family from Tiffany's machinations. As I was arriving home, Richard called me. Ashley, Tiffany has been talking to Kevin to start the separation. She seems to be looking for a way out of the marriage and wants to find a better lawyer. I think her life is starting to crumble, and her world is collapsing, Richard said. Yes, I know. I think that now she has realized she has no way out and has started to accept the consequences for her actions, I replied. All right, I will keep investigating anyway. I still have a feeling that she is trying to plot something, Richard added. Thank you, Richard. You have been amazing, I said. That night, while Josh was at work, I decided to post a video on YouTube exposing Tiffany's true character. I had many recordings and screenshots of her doing horrible things to me, so I posted it all as evidence to prove that everything I was saying was true. I titled the video, My Sister Tried to Destroy My Life, and Here Is How. In the video, I shared everything about Tiffany's attempts to sabotage my life, including the messages to my boss, the online harassment, and her plans to get custody of Emma. I presented all the evidence I had gathered, exposing her lies and manipulations. I also talked about my feelings and how Tiffany's actions had impacted me and my family. It was a bold move, and I knew it would have severe consequences. But I also knew that it was the only way to protect myself and my family from Tiffany's ongoing attacks. I pressed upload, and waited. The next morning, I woke up to a storm of notifications on my phone. The video had gone viral. People were sharing it, commenting on it, and expressing their support. The response was overwhelming. My phone rang. It was Josh. Ashley, I have just seen the video. Are you okay? This is insane, he said, his voice filled with worry. I am okay, Josh. It was the only way to protect us from Tiffany. I had to expose her, I replied. I understand, Ashley. But you need to be careful. Tiffany is not going to take this lightly, Josh warned. I know, but I am ready for whatever comes next. We will face it together, as always, I said. I was ready for whatever came next. The war had finally broken out. The following day, news came up of Tiffany's arrest. She had been using Kevin's company resources to harass Ashley. It turned out that this was against the law. This gave Ashley a boost of morale. Tiffany was getting what she deserved. Josh hugged Ashley and told her that everything was going to be fine, but Ashley knew that the end was far from over. There was a part of her that just would not feel safe with Tiffany around. A few weeks later, Ashley received a letter from a lawyer stating that Kevin was trying to claim her as a victim of their marriage, and as such, she was being held responsible for some damages in the past. The court had decided that Ashley needed to pay a total of $50,000 to Kevin. This made no sense, but Ashley knew it was one more play from Tiffany to try and harm her emotionally and financially. Ashley and Josh talked and decided to take legal actions. It seemed crazy that the court made such decision, and it was clear that Kevin was lying so that Tiffany could get away with it. This was insane. Ashley's lawyer told her that to prove Kevin was lying and to make the court overturn their decision, they needed solid evidence. Ashley then contacted Richard again and asked for his help once more. "Richard, they did it again? I need your help. Can we meet?" "Of course, Ashley. Where and when?" "I will meet you in an hour at your house." "All right. See you then." Ashley arrived at Richard's house, and they got straight to the point. Ashley explained to Richard everything about the court case and the damages, and how she needed help to prove that all that was a lie. "All right, this looks very suspicious. I will start investigating that lawyer and the court decision. It seems that they have done this on purpose, but I need more information. I will keep you updated." Days went by, and Richard found out some interesting things about the lawyer that was taking Kevin's case. He discovered that he had won cases like these before and that he might have been paying judges to win those cases. "Ashley, the lawyer is a cheater. The guy uses dirty strategies to win his cases. I need you to find any victim he may have had to get him in trouble. It's the only way." "All right, Richard, thank you." Ashley knew that Richard was right. She had to find a victim of that lawyer to take him down. The only problem was, where did she start? Ashley thought about all of her friends, if one of them knew of a similar case. After thinking and thinking for a while, Ashley called her childhood friend Melissa. "Hey Melissa, how is it going? I need your help." "Ashley? Long time no see, what's up?" "I have been having some trouble, but I was wondering if you knew any case where a lawyer has been lying to win a case, paying judges, things like that," Ashley asked. "Actually, I do. This happened to my neighbor, who had to pay damages for his wife cheating on him. The guy was innocent, but the court ruled that he had to give the money to her. I remember that the lawyer was a fraud, so I might be able to get in contact with him to know what happened," Melissa replied. "That would be amazing, Melissa. Thank you so much. Please tell me if you can get in touch with your neighbor and everything they tell you," Ashley said with relief. "Of course, I will call you as soon as I know something." After a few days, Melissa called Ashley. "Ashley, you won't believe what happened. I just spoke with my neighbor and he told me that the lawyer had been lying the whole time. He had never met the judge and had won because his lawyer had pictures and testimonies of him hurting his wife." "What? But that's a lie. The guy is always very nice," Ashley answered, surprised. "Yeah, that's what the lawyer said, but he had no idea about what he had done or that he was a victim. It was a great shock for him. He is willing to testify about that, so I think that's the proof you needed," Melissa replied. "That's amazing, Melissa. Thank you so much. This is just what I needed," Ashley said, relieved. Ashley called her lawyer and told him everything. He said that it was just the proof they needed and that they were definitely going to win the case. A few weeks later, the court declared that Ashley was free of all liability. Kevin and Tiffany had failed once again. They were losing and failing, and that was thanks to Ashley exposing them. Josh congratulated Ashley and told her that he was proud of her for standing up to them and not giving up. Ashley cried, feeling finally free of the evil from Tiffany and Kevin. She and Josh hugged.